worked on. That's God's truth. Wow. What humility on God's part to accept that and make that the way that his kingdom works. But he does. So that's pretty amazing. I wanted to give you some, a little bit of a taste what the Nahuatl language is like and why you have to study it. Because you have to know the source text, but you also need to know the language that it's going into. And of course, the people that are actually doing the translation, the ones on the team, they know it a lot better than I do. But if I'm going to help them, I got to know it. And I had a lot of fun learning it and analyzing it, figuring it out. And I could talk to them in the language, and that's a great thing. So, can you crank up the video? I want to show you some stuff that for me is fun. And I hope it is for you, even if you're not linguists in the same way, but I think you can enjoy it. So what's it saying? Okay. I don't know if I can use this. What's that? I'll try and use it like this. What's Nahuatl like? This is Nahuatl. See if you can say it. If you spit halfway across the bench when you're saying the sound, you did it right. Maybe I could just talk loud and we'll work. I apologize. All right. We okay now? All right. What's Nahuatl like? What's this language like? Well, it likes to make long words. That's one of the things that's true about it. Sometimes one word can translate a whole phrase in English or Greek, and that's cool. It also has some short words, and the long words are made out of the short pieces. Some of them are short words or short stems. Others are just affixes and so on. All right, something happened now. What is it? Okay. I wanted to show you the words that we used for the chief priests and the scribes. And this is from Mark 10:33, and a whole bunch of other places in the Gospels have more or less this. How would you say chief priests in English, normal English? Do we talk about chief priests a lot? What would we say? Would we say something like cardinals or like, if we're in the Catholic Church? I don't know. Think about it. Anyway, the first word is teopishkatlanawatihke. Isn't that beautiful? And then you could say Ivan, which means and then Tlanawatishmachtihke. Isn't that beautiful? Let's look at how they come together. It's fun. Start with three roots. A root is just a simple stem. You don't know what else it's made out of. That's what is a root. So we're going to look at three of them in the word teopishkatlanawatihke. The first one is pia. And the stem pia means to have. So if you say nikpia, that means I've got it. I have it. And when you put it in to combine, the PIY turns into a PI-esh. The X is an esh sound, like SH in English. Okay, so that's one of them. The root theo is a weird one. It sounds so much like theos in Greek. And a lot of people think, what on earth? Was there contact? The evidence is not at all good that there was, but no, who knows? I don't think there probably was, but I can't tell. And then the third root that we're going to look at is the root nawat, which means a clear word. And the name of the language, as I've said, is Nahuatl. So when you speak Nahuatl, you're talking clearly. You're getting a clear word across to people. Isn't that beautiful? I like it. All right, so the X is like the sh. The W is pronounced like a V a lot of times, and it depends on what town you're from, because in some towns they do it with a W sound, like a W. So when I read it, you'll probably hear the V's, because that's where I learned this variant the most, but I know that in other towns they do. So you could say teopishkatlanawatihke, but I would say teopishkatlanawatihke, pretty much. All right. The root nawa, you combine with a suffix tia to form a complex stem. So teo and pish, and then nawati, and that word means to command. So I give him a clear word. I tell him, you do this, and that's my clear word to him. And so niknavatia means I command him. I tell him what he's got to do. All right, the other two roots combine, and they form a complex stem. So you combine the teo and the pish, and you come up with teopilla, which means to be in charge of a god, or to be a priest. And it almost sounds like you're in charge of God if you use the stem teo to refer to the real God. Does that work? Well, they decided it does. So it's not really that you're in charge of it, but you're ministering to it. How? I don't know how to think of it, but that's what they use. To be a priest is teopilla. And so teopish is the combining form of that. Now the stem nawatia, you stick in an object prefix that is tla. And tla means things or stuff, or a generalized object, or there are different ways you can think of it. But anyway, tlanawatia means to command things, to command stuff, or command in general. So that means to be the boss, be the one that commands. Okay. And then both of those stems combine with a funny suffix that can be ki if it's alone, it can be ka for combining, and it's ke when it's plural. So it is like our English which means the one who does something. If you run, you're a runner. If you eat, you're an eater, and so forth. So they do that in Nahuatl very similarly. So you can see that Teopishka is the one who is a priest, and the Tlanavatihke are the ones that command, the bosses. So there's Teopishki, that's a priest. There's Tlanavatihke, which means the commanders. And what's it all come out to be? Well, it's the priest bosses or the boss priests or something like that. And there's your word for the chief priests. And when the team thought through it, they said, that's the best way we can say it. So there it goes. Now, Ivan means and, but it's complex. The E means his, her, or its, but if it combines with a postposition, which is like our prepositions, you can think of it as him, her, and it. And for instance, the van is one of those postpositions, and it means with. So if you say no van, which is my with or me with, it means with me. So Ivan means with him, her, or it. And if you think about it, what does and mean? If you say this and that, it means this, and with it, that. So, and with it is kind of the meaning of and. So that's how you say and in Nahuatl, or at least in our Nahuatl, the Orizaba Nahuatl. Do you remember that stem Tlanavatía that I showed you a minute ago? It means to command things and to be the boss. Well, if you think you see it in the word Tlanavatilmachtihke, you're right. That's the other word that we had. So the Tlanavati is there. Let me see if I can make this work. Right in there. And let's see how it goes together. Oh my, I had a lot of fun putting that in. So if you think you see Tlanavatia in this word, you do. This time though, the Tlanavatia combines not with the ke, which means the ones who do it, but it combines with an L, which means meant. And Nitlanavatia is I command things, I'm the boss, but when you stick the L on it, it means a commandment or a law. So if Tlanavatia means command, then Tlanavatile is the command, the law. Isn't that exciting? The other root that's used in that word is mati, which means to know. So there's your Tlanavatile, which is the commandment, and here is mati, which becomes mach when you combine, but nikmati means I know it. Now mati combines with a causative, which means to cause somebody to do it. And if you cause somebody to know, what are you? A teacher, that's it. So there's mati, I know it. There's tia, which means to cause, and nikmachtia means I teach him. I show it to him. I cause him to know it. Okay? So we've got the tlanawatili, which is the commandment, and the machti, which means a teacher. And you pluralize the teachers just with that same ke that we saw before. And what have you got? Well, you've got the teachers and the law or the commandment. So these are people that teach the commandments. And that's the word we used for the scribes. The word that the people chose to use, but I was certainly involved in the decision. So anyway, they are teachers of the commandment or of the commandments. All right, you can see sort of how the pieces fit together. It all sort of makes sense, doesn't it? At least to me it does. And you put them together, and that's the way you make words in Nahuatl. Now they're 9 syllables and 7 syllables, respectively. That's fairly normal for Nahuatl. It has a lot of long words, like I said. Here's the longest word that we have so far in the Bible translation. That's 19 syllables long. You pronounce it, Inma tlaxcalolis tlatecuina tlatzotzomban. You could easily make it a bit longer, but it just happens to be in this form in the translation that we did. Guess what it means? Guess where it shows up? It shows up in the book of Exodus, right after they crossed the Dead Sea. The Red Sea, not the Dead Sea. Sorry about that. It has to do with Miriam and the ladies of Israel. What did they do? You remember? After they crossed the Red Sea? They celebrated. How did they celebrate? Singing. Dancing and playing. What? Cymbals? Probably, but what it mentions particularly is tambourines. All right, there's no word for tambourines in Nahuatl. But I'll show you how this one is built up. The in means there, belonging to them. And it goes with the very last part, which is van. And that means that the thing that is possessed is plural. So they had several of these things. That's what those two together mean. They had a plural number of whatever's coming in between. All right. Here is the word hand. That's ma in Nahuatl. If you say no ma, that means my hand. Okay, this one is cool. Tortilla is tlaxcali. If you ever hear of Tlaxcala in Mexico, that's a tortilla place. And actually that comes from a stem called ishka, which means to roast or to cook on a comal, on a flat thing. So tortilla is a tlaxcali. And tlaxcalova means to slap. Now how do you get from tortillas to slapping? Well, in English it's hard to. In Nahuatl it's very easy. Because in their culture, you know how you make tortillas? You may put them on a table and slap them like this and turn the thing as you do. Some places they just do it like this. But anyway, tlaxcalova means to slap. If I say nik tlaxcalova, it means I give them a slap across the face or wherever. And the hand could be that I slap them on the hand, but probably not. In this context, it can mean I slap by hand, with my hand. Okay. So here's the listli. That's another thing that means meant. We saw one before that's not the list, but anyway. Tlaxcalolistli then would mean the process of slapping, or a noun of slapping, a slapment. We can't say in English, but that's the idea. So their hands, they slap, there's a slapment with their hands. And here's our friend tla, which means stuff or things. And here's tiquina, which means rattling or ringing. So there's a rattling sound or a ringing sound that you could almost call it a clanging sound in some contexts. Anyway, whoops. Go back here where we were. So there's a ringing of stuff going on. And here's the stuff once again. And it goes with a word that means to make music, but then in this form it means a musical instrument. And then there comes the plural possessed plural. So you stick it all together, and what have you got? You've got musical instruments that make a rattling or ringing sound, or a thumping sound also fits in there. And you do slapping with your hand to make it thump or ring or whatever. And this is your instrument for doing that. Well, how would you define a tambourine in English if you didn't have a word for it? And in fact, where do we get that word? Anybody know? Where's tambourine come from? French. About half of English is actually French. The other half is German or Dutch. So there you go. 19 syllables for one word, and it means they're tambourines. So what does it all mean? There you go. They're tambourines. And what's the moral of the story? If you're nuts like me, if you're made to be a linguist, like God made some of us to be, what that means is that not what words are fun. It's fun to look at that stuff and see how it works together. God made us all different. He made us with different gifts and different proclivities. And if this is what God made you to do, it's fun. You're going to like it. If God made you to be a doctor, well, that'll be fun. If God made you to be a gas station attendant, maybe it won't be fun, but you can make it fun if you learn to rejoice in it. Mechanics and all these people. God made us into a body. God made us to be a light to the world. God made us to do imperfect stuff because we're imperfect, and yet in the process to reflect Him. Isn't that amazing? I think it is. And that's about all I have to say. So I got done on time, John. Oh, you got something to say. Please do. That works up there.
Okay. So David started first grade when he was 4, because if he hadn't, he would have been the only student in his class. The teacher was not happy about that, so she made him sit on the other side from the rest of the class, which was 4 other kids on this side, till the day she learned that he was learning how to read upside down, and then she allowed him to come to this side. This teacher came to visit us in Mexico, and I said to her, David absolutely loves what he does. He just loves it. Oh, she said, I knew that in first grade. I said, you did? How did you know that? She said, one day I said, class, who can give me a word that has the ch sound? He raised his hand and he says, I know one with 2. What is it? It's where we're sitting. Church.
Yes.
We've got a few minutes. I've got a question.
Sure.
Maybe others have questions too. I remember reading about
Okay.
and the importance that Mexico, if I haven't right, Mexico was going to make their nation one language and kind of do away with cultural distinctions and language distinctions. Guatemala.
There was some of that in Mexico too.
Yeah, her father was instrumental in talking to the president and convincing him otherwise. So what's the advantage of keeping the native languages instead of converting all to one language?
Okay, let me start first with what is the advantage of converting everybody to speak the same language. If you're the boss, you don't want people out of control. And if they're talking Nahuatl and Chinatec and Zapotec and all these things, you don't know what they're saying. You can't keep tabs on them and you can't control it. And that's a bad thing if you're the boss. You like to have control. So all over the world this is happening. Another advantage of having one language is that if you are in this little town and you want to talk to somebody from the other side of the country, you can do it. So having a common language is really important. What's the advantage of having all these little languages? They are so beautiful. They communicate in a way that this second language that you learned and hardly know doesn't. And that's especially relevant for us. This is why we want to translate, because you want people to hear it in their own language. It'll talk to their heart if you have it in their own language. It'll be a clear word, like nawach means, and that's what you want. There are other things you could say, but to me that's kind of a summation of the controversy.
So I have never been to Hawaii, but I have read part of the Hawaii Pidgin Bible, and it is powerful because it is speaking to our hearts in a way that's completely different than English.
And yet it uses English words so we can understand.
So Jesus is not God's son. I'm his boy. And the Spirit is his good and special Spirit. And my favorite verse is Matthew 28 at the end. It says, I'm going to be with you guys and we'll go out.
Yes.
It appears that the Nawak are also visual people. And English is so inadequate, like we have 26 letters, and in so many other languages they have 32, 33, like a TSI, a CH sound, a CH, TS sound, SESAT, and et cetera. And translating into or from English, we just can't comprehend.
Yes. There are many things people think, okay, this language is richer than that language. And I'll tell you what, you look at that language and you're going to find richness there that you can't express in the first one. On the other hand, if you look at the first one, you'll find stuff you can't express well in the second. And that is the way it goes. The languages don't match up 100%. You just have to learn how you say, how you get as close as you can to what you want to say. Yes?
With there being a lot of wrong words, when you put it in printed form, it's like our Bible theirs is probably a lot more thicker, right?
Yeah. You can do it that way, and yet there's efficiency in these long words. I showed you some where it's a lot shorter in English. I can show you places where in Nahuatl it's short because in English we have to use a whole phrase to say it. And so they can say in 5, 6 syllables what we would take 5 or a dozen words to say. So shorter and longer are relative things. Yes?
Yeah, do the long words ever from different parts of the country? Do they, like you said, one part means one language and the other do they ever combine the words?
Okay. If they're Nahuatl languages, you do find a whole lot of stuff the same. That's like saying if they're Latin, you can understand them pretty well. But French and Spanish and Portuguese and Italian, those are all dialects of Latin. English is almost a dialect of Latin. But you can't count on what we say in English being immediately transferable to Italian, or what they say in Portugal coming straight across to us, or even to the Spanish, who are close neighbors. So the Nahuatl languages, it works pretty good. But right up the mountain chain, there's Chinantec. And in Chinantec, there are 14 ways to say the syllable ta, and they all mean something different. They have 7 tones, and then they can say ta, which has a glottal stop at the end, and they can say ta, which doesn't. And if you say ta, it means one thing, but if you say ta, it means another. And then if you say ta, it means another. You can't expect anything very close to be connected between Chinantec and Nahuatl. They're neighbors, but they're not related. Yes?
Okay, what you just say to us, what we used to say when we would walk up to a house.
Uh-huh.
What's that novel word?
I don't remember what you would say, but
Oi, oi,
oi oi.
and people would come running out.
Yeah. That is a sound that they make. It's not a very formal greeting, but it works. That's like saying, hey there.
Right. Also, would you say John 3:16 novel?
I'm going to have to read it, but I can do that. That's one of the nice things about these little gizmos is that you can carry a whole bunch of versions around with you. Let's see. So, John 3, verse 16. I have to take my glasses off to see this close. Totatsin okintlasohtlan tlastikpaklakame, ivanikino okimakaksanyen setsin ikonetsin. Ihkon nochi akin kinestoka amo mamishpolo. Ye manochipa yolto. So that's it.
So when you hear it like that, you hear the beauty of it.
Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. I love it. Yes, it is true. And I think that that will happen any language you learn to speak. I mean, if it's Arabic, if it's Telugu, if it's Swahili, if it's... Did you know there's 7,000 languages in the world? Now it's hard to decide when is a language and when isn't. And some of the difference is political, and some of the difference is sort of linguistic. But anyhow, people that have done surveys and have concluded that there are 7,000 languages that can't really communicate very well with anybody around them. Whoa! You can see why the governors and the bosses say, hey, let's all learn Spanish, let's all learn Swahili, let's all learn French. But you are losing so much beauty when you do that. And it makes me feel bad. It's kind of like, you're a history buff, was that what you said? And it wouldn't be the same if they paved over.
At the same time, language is a result of sin. And so I mean, we don't want to get too caught up. And I mean, we love doctors, but we would rather not have any doctors. We have doctors because we sin. We have various languages because man united together at Babel and did what man does. So, and I'm a localist. I think Yankees sound funny.
They do, man.
I understand all of these, but I'm just saying, we get too caught up. We get too caught up in defending, the beauties of this or the beauties of that,
There's something to that. Let's all speak Hebrew and Greek, maybe. But,
We're all going to speak one language in heaven.
yeah?
Or we're going to
I don't think that's true. I think we're going to speak them all, but understand each other. And to me, God takes the evil that sin has wrought and makes something glorious out of it. He can redeem all kinds of stuff that we think is irredeemable. And I believe that, well, I'll just say, here on earth right now, I think bilingualism is wonderful. I think it's wonderful that I can talk English, and I can talk Spanish, and I can talk Nahuatl, and that's a richness for me. It's much better than if I only spoke English. But I can't speak all of the languages. Maybe in heaven I can.
But you can get more done speaking English than you can all the others of those others combined. You fly a plane.
I don't believe that.
I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not arguing with you, really. But
Yeah.
Just somebody.
Yeah. You need to rein me in when I get too enthusiastic. Joy?
David got his doctorate by writing his dissertation, which are 3 books about this size. In the dedication, I understood that page. And in it, he mentions languages, of course. I think it's astonishing that we all have a whole entity and a tongue. The sounds that can come out and be languages. In it, he wrote a dedication, and to Jesus Christ, who I am, and who I think had as much fun inventing these as I have had trying to figure them out. Isn't that cool?
I put her in there too. You better believe it. Yep. I also mentioned my grandmother, and I put in there, to my grandmother, remembering the many times when I have achieved some dazzling insight and thought, of course that's right. My grandma could have told me that. Anyhow, Dan is telling me time's up, so I got to quit. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for listening.